Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Beyond Greatness. I'm Bill Phillips, along with Rob Metzger and Jack Hillgrove.
We're outside the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, where the New York Jets and Cleveland Browns will kick off the preseason tonight in the Hall of Fame game. But that's not the only big event happening here this weekend. Saturday, 9 new members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame will be enshrined.
Yeah, and over the next 30 minutes, we're going to highlight some of those enshrinees. We kick off tonight along the Ohio River in Warwood, West Virginia, where Ed Diorio has a look at the great Chuck Howley.
One of the most unique and versatile athletes the Ohio Valley, the collegiate and professional sports world has ever seen is about to take his place in Canton, Ohio. Warwood's own Chuck Howley can add to his long list of accolades, Pro Football Hall of Famer.
I remember him being the bigger-than-life football star, basketball star, track star, swimming star. He did everything.
Howley grew up playing all kinds of sports. However, when it was time to leave Corpus Christi School to go to Wheeling Central, he was cut from the football team because of a lack of uniforms. Howley transferred to Warwood High and took off. He played football, basketball, wrestled, and ran track and field, as well as taking up acrobatics and swimming.
He'd get up on the high dive and do all this crazy dives that only a gymnast could do. And he just awed everybody, and that was an attraction for people to come to the pool that night.
The All-OVAC and state honoree earned a scholarship to WVU for football, but remains the only athlete in university history to letter in 5 sports. After being drafted to the NFL in 1958 and suffering a knee injury, Howley moved back home.
Came back to Wheeling, bought a gas station, and when I was in college, I worked at that gas station.
Then Dallas came knocking. After signing with the Cowboys, Howley came back and earned 6 NFL All-Pro selections and was the MVP of Super Bowl V. The linebacker still made it a priority to come home during his playing days.
My brother was diagnosed with diabetes when he was 12, and Chuck came back from the game and visited him in the hospital and handed him his game jersey.
The Cowboys legend finally joining his old teammates in the Hall, an honor in many eyes that was well overdue. An honor that was told to Howley by a Hall of Fame friend.
Roger Staubach was his next door neighbor. And they've lived together, lived on the same street for 40 years together. And Roger Staubach came over to tell him that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Beatty says he and his family still do their part in making sure Howley's legacy isn't forgotten.
They have Chuck Howley shirts that they wore to school. So word's getting out amongst the younger kids.
Beatty went on to add that he hopes that he and some of Howley's extended family can make it to Canton for the ceremony on Saturday, August 5th. Reporting in Warwood, I'm Ed Diorio.
Howley, the 6th Mountain State native, the 3rd former West Virginia Mountaineer, and 32nd former Dallas Cowboy to enter the Pro Football Hall of Fame. One of those Hall of Famers, former teammate Bob Lilly, will present Howley for induction into the Hall, just as he did for Howley's induction into the Cowboys' Ring of Honor back in 1977.
He had such a great work ethic, and I could see him in college, you know, when he was participating in all these different sports. I mean, he probably had no spare time whatsoever. He was always making big plays for us. I mean, he would come up with an interception, or he would come up with fumbles. Coach Landry said, you know, there are some players that you just have to give latitude to, and he said Chuck Howley was one of them.
He's the only player in the history of the Super Bowl to come from a losing team and be the most valuable player. What he would do is fool you. I mean, you know, imagine against Unitas and Earl Morrall, two, you know, established quarterbacks. Chuck would make them think he was going to do something, and then suddenly he'd give them a false look, and that's how he got his interceptions.
That was one of the things that was in his mind that he wanted to accomplish before he retired, and sure enough, we won that Super Bowl, and I think he retired the next year.
He you know, he had his commercial dry cleaning business, and I saw him, you know, come in, you know, after practice, take a shower quickly, you know, get dressed and leave. First one out of the building, and it's like, where are you going? It's like, well, I got to get back to my business.
Hard to believe how long Howley had to wait for his call to the Hall again. The only member of a losing team to win Super Bowl MVP, but he later got that ring as a champion the next year in Super Bowl VI. The former first-round pick of the Bears turned into a 5-time All-Pro and 6-time Pro Bowler with the Cowboys, recording 25 interceptions from his linebacker spot.
Joining Chuck Howley, Joe Thomas, and Darrelle Revis in the 2023 Hall of Fame class, defensive back Rondé Barber, who finished his career with 47 interceptions. Head coach and offensive mastermind Don Coryell, the first man to win 100 or more games collegiately and in the pros. Joe Klecko played with the Sack Exchange in New York. He was the Defensive Player of the Year in 1981. Defensive back from the Cincinnati Bengals, Ken Riley, who collected 65 career interceptions. Zach Thomas was the AFC Defensive Rookie of the Year for the Miami Dolphins, and DeMarcus Ware collected 138.5 sacks, and he was a Super Bowl winner with Denver. When we return to Beyond Greatness, we speak with Bob Dunleavy, who felt the influence of the great Chuck Howley as he traveled his own path from Warwood to the National Football League. Welcome back to Beyond Greatness. And speaking of greatness, how about Chuck Howley from Warwood, West Virginia? He'll be going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this weekend.
And while the odds are overwhelming for anyone to even reach the National Football League, the town of Warwood actually produced 2 Dallas Cowboys within a decade of each other.
Yeah, those two being Howley and Bob Dunleavy. And Dunleavy, a wide receiver like Howley, played his college football at West Virginia University and went on to play for the Dallas Cowboys.
Chuck was our hero, so to speak. The big high school superstar. I was only in grade school at the time. He was playing high school ball, but we always looked up to him.
Although they played at the same high school, Warwood, and same college, WVU, Chuck Howley and Bob Dunleavy are about 8 years apart and did not share a field together until the summer before heading to Cowboys training camp in the summer of 1966.
So we worked out together during the summer at Garden Park. So he'd come home, visit his parents, and we'd work out.
At that point, Howley had already played 5 seasons with Dallas and 2 with the Chicago Bears, who selected him 7th overall in the 1958 NFL Draft. Dunleavy said having a veteran player hailing from the same hometown was beneficial as he embarked on his first Cowboys camp in '66.
First year out there, you better be prepared because you never knew what was going to happen. Chuck was a gentleman all the way. He always gave me heads up if there was something going on. When the first meal we had together, he told me, he came up to me, he said, "Now I'm going to ask you here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'll ask you to stand up and put your hand over your heart, and stand on a chair. They make you do that and sing something." So he picked on me real quick so I could get it out of the way. And so fortunately, he treated me good.
Though a gentleman outside the lines, Howley wasn't one to take it easy on anyone between the lines, even if it was someone who hailed from his own hometown.
I remember times when I had to block Chuck a few times in scrimmages, and I remember one particular time in general when I was fortunate enough I caught a hook, what we used to call a hook pass, a 10-yard hook pass, and I caught the ball, believe it or not. I could see out of the corner of my eye Chuck was coming at me, and he hit me big time. In fact, he split my lip open.
Howley wrapped up his 15-year NFL career in 1973, inducted into the Cowboys Ring of Honor in 1977. He entered the WVU Hall of Fame in 1991, but somehow had to wait 32 more years to get his spot in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
He should have been there a long time ago, but, it is what it is, so you just take every step it's come, and fortunately he made it.
Howley is a name that may not be real familiar to younger football fans. However, his legacy is certainly remembered by those in and around his hometown, including a longtime successful high school coach in the Ohio Valley.
To get the recognition he got from the Valley, from a small community of Warwood, it's really great and unique and special, because we've had a number of All-Americans in other sports come out of this valley, Lou Groza and Bobby Douglas, and just to name a few, with Havlicek and Lance Mel. I mean, we've had them go on to stardom, and now Chuck's going into the Hall of Fame, and it's a great opportunity for he and his family to celebrate.
So a big week for the men going into the Hall of Fame in the class of 2023. And Friday, they have the gold jacket ceremony. Donnie Shell, when he went in for the Steelers just a few years ago, told me he was more excited about that than just about anything because you receive your gold jacket from all of the other Hall of Famers. So that is a big day.
Yeah, and then on Saturday, they officially become members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, being enshrined at noon on Saturday inside Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium.
Don't forget, you can catch tonight's Hall of Fame game between the Cleveland Browns and New York Jets on NBC. Pre-game coverage begins at 7, kickoff at 8 between the Jets and the Browns.
It took me a minute to let that sink in, but as soon as it did, I felt just like this enormous amount of pride because how much I love this team, how much I love the city.
Welcome back to Beyond Greatness. Joe Thomas of the Cleveland Browns, he set the all-time consecutive games mark in National Football League history.
Yeah, absolutely no surprise that his bust will forever be inside the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Rob Metzger in there right now with more on number 73.
Joe Thomas's legacy was all about consistency and commitment, which led to great production on the field, leading to a spot here inside the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Thomas, the 23rd former Cleveland Brown to be enshrined, joining the likes of Martins Ferry native Lou Groza, Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 1974.
To be the first of the new Browns to be in the Hall of Fame is something that I just still can't wrap my mind around.
Also something that's hard to wrap the mind around, Thomas's first sport he excelled at was not football. It was soccer, and it took some convincing of his mom to let him eventually make the switch to the gridiron.
It wasn't until I went to the library and I got a book about sports injuries and youth sports injuries, and I proved to her that youth soccer has a lot of concussions and youth football is relatively safe. It's not any more dangerous than any of the other sports, and so she let me play football in 7th grade.
As good a football player Thomas developed into through high school in Wisconsin, another sport had his attention as well as he searched for a college home. Thomas was a state champion, shot put, and discus thrower.
I visited Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Colorado, and Kansas, and Nebraska. Once I visited all those other places, it became very obvious to me that Wisconsin was the perfect fit for me.
A multi-position standout in high school, the Badgers eventually made left tackle Thomas's home, a move pushed by former Pitt head coach Paul Chryst.
He was the tight ends coach at the time, but he said, you know what? You're pretty big, you're pretty fast, you're pretty athletic. We think we can put some weight on you, and if you're willing, we'd love to move you to left tackle because you have the prototypical body to be able to be a left tackle that can go and play a long time in the NFL.
Thomas went 3rd overall in 2007 to Cleveland. However, he did not take the traditional walk across the draft stage.
Yeah, draft day was really fun for me because I wasn't wearing a suit. I wasn't hugging a bunch of sweaty guys that I'd never met before. And I was out on the water fishing with my dad.
The Browns won 10 games his rookie season, but as fate would have it, only 38 more wins came about during the course of his 11-year career. However, throughout all the coaching and front office changes, Thomas kept showing up and producing, putting together an NFL record streak of 10,363 snaps played.
For me, that 10,363 consecutive snaps is my most proud personal accomplishment because for me, that represents all the pain, all the injuries, all the anguish, all the times I could have quit on my team. For me, that's a testament to the values that my parents put in me about loyalty, about toughness, about doing your job under any circumstances.
That consistency, commitment, and production has Thomas heading to Canton as a first ballot Hall of Famer.
It takes a team. It is a we sport. And that's a huge reason why when I had an opportunity to name my presenters for the Hall of Fame, I named my kids and my wife because there's nobody that I can think of outside of my direct teammates and maybe the coaches that had a bigger impact on me being able to be a Hall of Famer than them.
Joe Thomas, class of 2023 in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Quite the resume. An All-Pro 6 times, a 10-time Pro Bowler, named to the NFL's All-Decade Team of the 2010s, and of course, the NFL record 10,363 consecutive snaps. Don't forget you can catch tonight's Hall of Fame game between the Browns and the New York Jets live on NBC. Pre-game coverage begins at 7, kickoff around 8 p.m. between the Jets and the Browns.
Next on Beyond Greatness, we whisk you away to a destination no National Football League wide receiver ever wanted to go, Revis Island. That's next on Beyond Greatness. Welcome back to Beyond Greatness. Speaking of two fantastic players that are headed to the Hall this weekend, it is Darrelle Revis and Joe Thomas, two players that faced each other more than once on National Football League gridiron.
And now they will be forever linked as part of this 2023 Hall of Fame class. Our Jack Kugrove inside the Hall of Fame with more on the former Pitt Panther star.
Before Darrelle Revis was an NFL defensive back, he was a hometown hero. And I got a chance to sit down with a couple of people that watched him very closely, whether that was in high school or in college, and ended up being a part of Darrelle's Hall of Fame journey.
You know, every day my purpose, you know, was not to just be the best in my position, but be the best player on the field.
Those that watched Revis closely will tell you he was so good because...
You know, he had a special talent with the ball in his hands.
Just a terrific athlete that played anywhere.
He was as all around as you could find.
And yeah, I guess you could say that.
Still on his feet inside the 20, still on his feet, and he's in the end zone for a touchdown. Darrelle Revis. The Panthers have said all year this guy's going to break one.
It all began for Darrelle at storied Aliquippa High School, nestled in Beaver County, Pennsylvania. Revis will become the third Quip to enter the Hall of Fame, following Super Bowl winners Mike Ditka and Ty Law. Even though he's not the first Hall of Famer legendary high school coach Mike Smianik has been around, Darrelle sure stuck out in his own right.
One day he walked into the gym as we were doing football. I had no idea that he wanted to play football. And I said to him, "Oh, you come in to stay in shape, working out with us." And he said, "No, I think I'll give this a try."
From the Quips to the Panthers, Revis stayed home to play his college ball at Pitt, where his uncle, Sean Gilbert, played his college ball. Staying close to home was important for Darrelle, and the guys who worked their tail off to bring him to Pitt are sure glad he stayed.
He had a way about him. He exhumed self-confidence.
We knew talent-wise probably after practice one, you know. I know that sounds crazy, but like it was pretty obvious that he was different.
And after 3 stellar years at home in Pittsburgh, Revis tallied 66 tackles and 8 interceptions in college. He was Sporting News first-team freshman All-American in 2004, first-team All-Big East in 05 and 06, and that punt return in the Backyard Brawl in 2006 was that year's ESPN College Football Play of the Year. The next step, the NFL, and being selected 14th overall in 2007 by the New York Jets.
When you see interviews of guys that have played against him, every one of them says the same thing. Being the number one defensive back in the NFL was a given. There were a lot of people that thought he was the number one defensive player during his prime. And I know nobody here would argue that.
And the rest from there is history.
I just think it's such a compliment to the type of player that he was, that he had an island named after him.
Revis Island, meaning if you're a receiver getting guarded by him, you were rarely getting the ball. Revis Island stranded wideouts in the league for 11 seasons. He was a 7-time Pro Bowler, 4-time first-team All-Pro, and was a key part of winning Super Bowl 49 in New England. But after all the success at the highest level, Revis never forgot Western PA.
And I love the kid. I'm so happy for him. I'm so proud of him.
He was always so disciplined and hardworking. You know, I'm proud of the man that he's become.
The third player out of Aliquippa High School in Beaver County, PA, to enter the NFL Hall of Fame. Darrelle Revis, the first-round pick of the Jets back in 2007, a 4-time All-Pro, Super Bowl champ back in Super Bowl 49 with 29 career interceptions.
So Darrelle Revis will be enshrined this weekend, and he will watch one of his former teams, the New York Jets, kick off the preseason against the Cleveland Browns.
The Browns, a team that many are still waiting to make that initial Super Bowl run. The Browns spent the first 8 days of extended training camp this year in West Virginia at the Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs through July 30th. One of the biggest questions for the Browns going into this 2023 campaign, can Deshaun Watson round into the form which made him a 3-time Pro Bowler with the Houston Texans? After nearly 2 years away from the game and serving an 11-game suspension for violating the league's personal conduct policy, Watson returned for the final 7 games of 2022, posting a career-worst passer rating of 79.1.
I think I'm in the best spot of my life, and I think it's just because, I'm older, I'm more wise. I've experienced different things in different situations. What the NFL put me through with, the therapy sessions and things like that, I didn't take that lightly. I really cherish those moments, and I want to learn. I'm just happy about just life in general, and I have a great support cast around me, I have a great family, I have a great home, and an organization that's backing me up. So with that foundation, I feel like I can, get back to where I was and be even better as a person and as a player.
And don't forget, you can catch tonight's Hall of Fame game between the Cleveland Browns and the New York Jets on NBC. Pre-game coverage beginning at 7 o'clock with kickoff at 8 between the Jets and the Browns. The class of 2023 is certainly humbled and almost overwhelmed by being enshrined.
In just a few minutes, the NFL preseason will kick off here in Canton. The 2023 Hall of Fame game between the New York Jets and Cleveland Browns live on NBC.
I want to thank you once again for joining us for Beyond Greatness. For Ed Diorio, Jack Hillgrove, Rob Metzger, I'm Bill Phillips. Enjoy the Hall of Fame game, everybody.